Hey guys, I am Vishal and I welcome you all to this cloud computing services tutorial. In this session, we are going to go ahead and take a look at quite a few nitty-gritties of different cloud computing services. But before we do that, let's start by taking a look at today's agenda. First and foremost, I would be talking about what is cloud and what is cloud computing. Once we've understood these, then we would get into the details of different types of cloud services or cloud computing services. We would also discuss another important topic called as deployment models. And finally, I would finish things off with a demo part. I hope this agenda is clear to you guys. So let's not waste any time and quickly get started then. So what exactly is cloud? Now, before I talk about cloud, let me tell you that I've talked about this topic quite a few times, but there might be people who are completely new to this session. So I would like to give you a quick intro about the pre-cloud era. Now, back then we had a situation where we actually had to buy the complete architecture when we had to host a website or maybe an application. So there were certain cons of doing this process. Now, when you do go ahead and plan to buy the complete architecture, you have to invest a lot of time in pre-planning and plan your architecture in such a way that it meets all your needs. Now, what happens here is there are certain disadvantages like you're never sure as in how much space you might need because there might be a possibility that you might need to upscale or downscale depending upon the needs, right? But if you pre-buy the complete architecture, now upscaling and downscaling can be a huge problem. Apart from that, these servers were costly. That meant you had to shell out a lot of money to buy these servers. Plus, maintaining these servers was a huge task because either you were maintaining these servers or you were focusing on your business goals. You could not do both the things together. That meant, again, either you had to pay to someone to maintain your servers or you had to compromise on the business goals to some extent. Something you would not want when you're running a particular business, right? So, these were some of the shortcomings in the pre cloud era. So, what did cloud do differently? First and foremost, it provided you with huge space online, and it was nothing but a collection of servers which was orchestrated in a very good way. Now, you might wonder, as in, these points are similar to what we just discussed, right? I mean, pre cloud era was just like this. You had a collection of servers which you bought and you used it. But the way these services were provided to you was different. The keyword here is orchestration. Everything that is here, that is that huge space online and the collection of servers, it was orchestrated and given to you in such a way that it made all the difference. And that is why cloud is different. How? You can actually go ahead and rent these services and use them only for the time duration you want, and you pay only for that time duration only. That means, suppose you need 2 petabytes of space, you would be using only that space and you'd be paying only for that space and only for the time duration you are using it. If there is a situation where you need to upscale or downscale, that can be done in minutes. And there are quite a few different ways or services that are provided to you that enable you to carry out various tasks with a lot more ease. That is why this word orchestration is very important. And that is why cloud is very different from the situation we were in before cloud came into existence. I hope the definition of cloud is clear to you guys. So let's move further and try to understand something else. So what exactly is cloud computing? Now the use of cloud to carry out computation is called as cloud computing. That means you can store data or apps on remote servers. You can process those and even access those from anywhere across the globe. That means suppose you're sitting somewhere in maybe China and your data resides in US. You can have access to your data by sitting in China and you can process your data by sitting in China. So that is the flexibility cloud gives you. Now you might wonder, as in, if I sit in China, why do I need to process my data in US, right? So yes, taking such calls as in, where do you want your data to reside? Is it strategically good for you to keep your data in China? You can do that as well because you'd be having data centers that are established in China and you can use cloud services there as well. Suppose you have certain business that you want to thrive in US. So you can have your data centers there and you can maintain it there as well. And you can have access to your data by sitting in China again. So yes, this is the flexibility cloud gives you. And the process of carrying out these computations on cloud is called as cloud computing. So what exactly is a cloud service? Now let's take a look at the definition. I'm actually not that good when you talk about going with the flow or just carrying out the technical definitions. Let me just quickly read this for you and then give you a short explanation as in what this point exactly conveys. Now, if I just read it blankly, this is what it says. Cloud services cover a wide range of resources that a service provider delivers to customers via the internet. Yes. Now, when you talk about a particular cloud service, the aim is to cater your individual or particular needs. Now, you might have more than one need, right? So in that case, suppose you have say 10 different requirements. The aim of a particular cloud service or a cloud platform is to meet all your needs. And these needs are serviced by providing you a customized or a packaged approach towards a problem. This packaged approach is nothing but a cloud service. Let us try to understand different service models or again different cloud computing service models. What are these models? Well, there are three in total. You have SaaS, PaaS, and IaaS. Now, I do not know how to pronounce it because these terms have a meaning. When you talk about SaaS, it stands for Software as a Service. Then you have something called as PaaS, that is Platform as a Service. And you also have something called as IaaS, that is Infrastructure as a Service. Now, it is very clear from the name itself. Here, you are provided software as a service. That means the cloud provider is giving you the complete software in the form of a service. And same is with platform and infrastructure. That is, platform is given to you as a service and infrastructure is given to you as a service. Now let's try to understand what do I mean by giving these things to you as a service. First, let's try to understand what is SaaS, that is software as a service. Now, if you take a look at these pointers, it says on-demand service, independent platform, no need to install on PC, resources managed by the vendor. Now, all these points are true. And as you can say, they say who uses it? End customers. Now, let me give you an example to clarify this situation a little more. Say, for example, we have Gmail where you actually exchange emails, right? Now, have you ever wondered what happens in the background? How does a mail get transferred? Let's assume you have, but what if you did not? Would it matter a lot? No, it won't, right? Because everything is taken care of. All you have to do is type your email and it gets delivered to the location or to the person you want to deliver it to, right? You just hit the enter button and the message is delivered. So, what happens here is your only concern is consuming the services provided by Gmail, right? You're not concerned about how the platform works, what is happening in the background, what are the security concerns, what if the server goes down, where is the mail or email getting stored. It's none of your concern, right? Your only concern is to exchange mails. That means you're just using the service, and the service provider, they're just providing you a complete software or an application in the form of service. That is why this architecture is called as software as a service. And now if you take a look at the points, they would make a little more sense to you. It's an on-demand service. Based on your demand, you have the service made available to you. It's an independent platform. You do not have to worry about anything. You do not have to install it on your PC. You never install Gmail, do you? You just log in and you start using it, right? And resources are managed by the vendor. I've already discussed this point. Finally, who uses it? You use it, right? So what are the pros and cons of this particular approach? Well, when you talk about the pros, it's universally accessible from any platform. Yes, you do not have to worry about which operating system you're using, whether it's your Windows, whether it's your Mac, it's available everywhere, right? You can just open your browser and start using Gmail. You do not have to worry about the underlying operating system or anything else. Excellent for collaborative working. Now, I won't get into the details of this point. Vendor provides modest software tools and allows for multi-tenancy. Yes, you can have multiple tenants and the best possible tools or softwares are made available to you. So what are the cons? Now, when you talk about the cons, portability can be an issue and browser issues. Most importantly, internet. Now, the services are made available to you. So everything is taken care by the vendor, but then you need to have a good internet connection. Certain applications might be heavier and certain might be lighter. Say for example Facebook, right? It is one of the lightest websites or lightest platforms which you can use. You just hit Facebook or enter Facebook on in your browser and it opens up immediately even at a very less internet source or with a very less internet source. But that might not be true with all the softwares that are provided to you, right? Certain softwares might require you to have better internet. So internet actually dictates over the overall performance, and depending upon the software that is given to you, this might vary. Next, we have PaaS, that is platform as a service. We would repeat the same practice. I would just go through the points here and then we would discuss it. Now, programming language plus operating system plus server plus database. It provides you with encapsulation, and you can build, compile, and run programs. User manages data and application resources. And who uses it? Developers. Now, what happens here is your service provider or your cloud provider, he gives you the complete platform to use. Now, when I say the complete platform to use, that means the provider takes care of all the underlying part or the infrastructure, not to the complete extent, but to a greater extent than what happened in software as a service. Here, a platform is provided to you. Say, for example, your servers are taken care of, your virtual machines are taken care of. You are given some predefined tools which you can use and actually go ahead and build your own applications. Say, for example, you have your Google App Engine, right? I mean, Place or Google Play Store rather, where you can actually go ahead and put your applications. But at times you also need, means when you talk about platform as a service, here you also have a freedom of creating your own applications. But the basic infrastructure, that is providing you with the servers or providing you with the virtual machines and all those things, that is taken care by your vendor. What you're concerned about is your applications and your data. You maintain only these parts. And that is why it is very conducive for developers, because developers can use the existing resources and they can build applications quicker or in a much better way. So what are the pros and cons of this architecture? If you talk about the pros, it's highly scalable like most of the other services as well. Faster market for developers, yes. If you need to go ahead and build an application, you actually have a template which is ready for you. All you have to do is use that template and go ahead and build your applications, right? So for developers, it's like a boon. Easy deployment for web applications, and private and public deployment also happens here. What are the cons? Now, the cons here are provider languages only. Now, what does this mean exactly? Say, for example, your provider gives you a platform. Now, it has certain restrictions. You can use certain languages only, the ones that are defined by your vendor. Now, this is where vendor lock-in steps in. And that is why when you talk about the capability that a developer has, it gets limited to the softwares or the facilities that are made available by the vendor. There are certain pros, that is application development becomes faster, but the environment is predefined. That is where the restriction lies. IaaS, infrastructure as a service. Now, this is the most basic form of service that is provided to you. Infrastructure is given to you. To give you an example, suppose you rent a house. Now, the owner, he gives you a house and says, use it the way you want to and pay me this rent. So you are paying the owner for the house. Now, when you get inside the house, you realize that it only has a bed and suppose it has a table. Apart from that, you need to put in your kitchen utensils, you need to set up the house the way you want to use it, and then you can actually go ahead and use that house. Now, this is the definition of infrastructure as a service. That means only the infrastructure is given to you. Everything else is something that you put in the way you want it, and then you use it. If you take a look at the pointers here, it says provides computing architecture and infrastructure. Apart from that, data storage, virtualization, servers, and networking is something that your provider takes care of. Everything else is managed by you. Your applications, your middleware, your data, everything is taken care by you. Vendors manage above resources, that is the ones which I just mentioned, and user handles data in the middleware. Who is it convenient for? System administrators. Now, what are the pros and cons here? Cons are you have security issues, service and networking delays at times because you're working on a very basic underlying architecture. Apart from that, what are the pros? You have cloud providers or the cloud provides the infrastructure, obviously, because that is what the name is, infrastructure as a service. It gives you enhanced scalability because you're working on a very basic infrastructure and you're free to choose or modify the architecture the way you want to. Dynamic workloads are supported. Yes, since you have the freedom, it becomes dynamic to a very great extent and also flexible. Let's try to understand these examples a little more. Now, this diagram actually depicts all the points that we just discussed. If you take a look at IaaS, here your data, applications, runtime, middleware, and operating system. Everything is managed by you. When you talk about the basic virtualization services, your servers, your storage, and network, these are the things your vendor manages. When you talk about PaaS, even the middleware is taken care by your vendor. You only worry about the data and the applications. And then you have software as a service where you just manage your data and everything else. Well, again, the vendor takes care of everything else. So these were some of the service models. As we move further, I would be giving you more examples and use cases so that you understand these points a little more. Let me just detour a little and switch to some other topic. Now I would be discussing something called as deployment model. We just discussed the topic called as different services and the way these services are made available to you. These services or these models vary. But we also need to understand one more thing, as in what are the different ways in which a cloud can actually be provided to you. Now, based on the services, that was one classification, but based on deployment also we can classify these services in a different way. Let's try to understand this classification. Well, you have three classifications or three subclasses. That is your public cloud, you have your private cloud, and you also have something called as hybrid cloud. Let's try to understand these one by one. So what exactly is a public cloud? Now, again, cloud services are made available to you, right? But how are the access rights that are given to you? When you talk about a public cloud, it is available for use for anyone. That means if someone comes and pays money to the cloud service, these cloud service providers, they would actually go ahead and give these services to that individual. As the definition says, a service provider makes resources such as applications and storage available to general public over the internet. What happens here is it is easy and inexpensive setup because hardware, applications, and bandwidth, the costs are covered by the provider. All you worry about is consuming the services. Here the resources do not get wasted, right? Because you rent only a particular space and you use only that space. And since it is publicly available, you are charged less as well. At times people worry about the security part compared to the private cloud. Here security concerns might be a little more, but even this platform is very secure. Private cloud, here a set of services is made available to a private user. That means applications and all those things which I talked about, here too your vendor manages most of the things, but a set of services is made available to you and there is no public intervention here. That means you are the only one who are using that services. Plus, you have a little more freedom here. That means you can exploit this architecture a little more than what you could exploit in the previous slide. That is your public cloud. Here, everything is taken care by, again, your cloud service provider. But here you have more access. You have more access rights and you can use these resources in a much better way. But then you might require an approach that lies in between, right? So we have something called as a hybrid cloud. Here, certain services are made available to you privately and certain lie on the public cloud. That means you have a general access to it. This model is affordable compared to this model because here everything is made available to you privately. So hence you are paying more. Here you are paying more for the services that are made available to you publicly, and certain services where you are not concerned a lot about using these services, security and all those issues, you can use those services publicly. And this combination is called as your so-called hybrid cloud model. So these are some of the deployment models in which the deployment is made available to you differently. So this was about some of the services which I wanted to go ahead and talk. Let's quickly switch into the demo part. Now, when I say the demo part, I would be introducing you to maybe three different use cases or three different situations through a small presentation or a slide demo is what I would say, something that would help you understand these services a little more. To do that, let me switch into my system or the browser and give you a short demo. So, okay guys, what I've done is I've gone ahead and I've logged into my console. Now, as I've mentioned that we would be discussing certain use cases or examples of various cloud service platforms. Let's try to understand those one by one. Now, first and foremost, we have software as a service, right? Now, as I've already mentioned, a software is given to you in the form of services. To give you a very common example, we have Google Apps. Now, if I come here into my email account, that is my Gmail account, and I click on this icon here, you can see there are quite a few applications that are made available to you. You have your YouTube, you have your Play Store, then you have your Drive. Docs is something that you have, if I'm not wrong. Yep, you have Docs as well, where you can actually go ahead and create your documents and send those documents. Then you have your calendar. Now, what software as a service means is instead of getting those softwares individually and using those, instead of installing those, your cloud provider would provide you a set of those services or that particular software which you can use. Now, this is a very good example. What Google has done is it has given you quite a few things. Like you have something called as Google News, you have your Gmail, you have your Google Docs, right? You can have your Excel sheets and all those things here, and there's so many other things. Now, what this does is think of it from a business perspective. Instead of going ahead and buying these softwares individually, which can be very costly, what you can do is you can use these services as a package. And trust me, quite a few businesses can actually run only on these services. If you have a proper mailing account, you have, say, your services where you can use your docs and you can use your Excel sheets. So many businesses can actually run only on this package. And this is something that is made available to you at a very less cost. If I'm not wrong, what Gmail does is it charges you very less for some 25 GB or whatever space that you use, which is very much if you talk about basic mailing and documentation. And when you compare it with other softwares that are there in the market, they charge you heftily. So yes, when cloud does give you these services and they give you in the form of software, it is called as software as a service. And all these terms that we talk here are softwares, right? So this is nothing but an example of your SaaS. Now, when we talk about IaaS or PaaS, we have something called as AWS. Now, AWS as an entire service is popular or known for its IaaS services, that is infrastructure as a service model. Now, that is what it provides you. It provides you with a number of those services. Like you have EC2 here, S3, which are common examples or very popular examples of your IaaS platform, not platform, IaaS rather. But if you talk about platform as a service, yes, AWS also provides you with platform as a service option here. You have something called as Elastic Beanstalk, which is a very good example of platform as a service. Now let me go through some other stuff and or give you some examples to clarify these differences in a little more depth. Right. So when you say software as a service, okay, first and foremost, I just started talking about AWS and all these services. Let me just clarify some stuff for people again who are completely new to this platform. Understand that AWS, that is Amazon Web Services, is a product by Amazon and it is one of the leading cloud service providers in the market. If you do not know this, I would suggest that you do go ahead and research on AWS because if you are interested in cloud computing, AWS is like one of the most popular service providers that are there in the market, and you should be able to or should have some knowledge about it. And now moving back to the discussion, if you do log into your AWS account, which is a free tier account that is made available to you, I have one. I've actually created one recently, and at least this account. So what happens here is you are given a free tier which is made available to you, and quite a few services are again made available to you freely, which you can use and you won't be charged unless you stay in limits. So for people who want to do go ahead and implement or take a look at the stuff which I'm doing right now, they can actually go ahead and create a free account if you do not have one. All you have to do is sign in and give in your debit card or credit card details. Do not worry, you would be charged only for the services that you are using. And if you do stay in limits, you won't be charged at all. Plus, if you are reaching that certain limit, a notice would be given to you that you have exceeded your limit. So in that case, you can actually shut down your instances or the services that you're using. So do not worry about the billing process. Just go ahead and create an account. Initially, if you are from India, you would be charged 2 rupees as a verification process of your card details, and that would be reimbursed into your account again because AWS does not charge you anything. This account is for free. So do go ahead and complete that process. Once you do that, you have access to this console and then you can do so many things. Now let's try to understand what infrastructure as a service is. As the name suggests, a basic infrastructure is given to you. Now, EC2 is an IaaS service. That means EC2 is nothing but Elastic Cloud Compute, where a virtual environment is given to you where you can do all those things that you want to. Now, as I've already mentioned, your provider would give you only the infrastructure in case of IaaS. That means only a virtual environment would be given to you, and you have to take care of everything, your applications, middleware, and the data that you use, right? So let's just go ahead and use this EC2 or IaaS to have something or have an infrastructure or a small use case for us. So how do we do that? If I click on this thing, EC2, it would actually give me details of quite a few things, like what are the running instances. And see, I have 0 running instances. I have one security group, which is by default. I do not have anything else, right? So let's just go ahead and create an instance and see how it looks like, right? But before that, let me just go ahead and create key pair value, which is very important. Create. Yes. Give it a name. Say my first demo key. Okay. I say create. Guys, a file gets downloaded here. I would suggest that you actually take this particular file and then you paste it somewhere where you can use it safely. There you go. Right, so this is my first demo key. It has an extension .pem. Now what happens with a key is, we're talking about security here. So when you do create an instance, it has a particular login detail or a particular key associated with it, which is very core or important to every instance, and this key is unique to it. So you can only log into that instance or use that instance with that particular key. So keep this key intact or keep it properly. So I have that key with me, right? Next, I would be creating a security group. Now I would be talking about all these things, and once we move further, it would make a lot more sense to you people, as in why am I doing all these things. Meanwhile, you just bear with me. Now this is a by default group. Let me just create one more. Let me call it, say, demo security group. Okay, VPC description not given. Add rules. I can set in certain rules here. Secured sign in is something that I need one more. HTTP, say HTTPS probably, yep, and RDP for my Windows. I won't be getting into the details of these things. I just wanted you to have an understanding or some basic knowledge as in what happens here. So basically, I need to communicate with my instance, right? So it has to be done through some port. So I would be enabling certain ports. Now, when you do access your so-called VM or instance through SSH, this is the port number or range that you use. Accordingly, there are certain other ports that I have defined. If you talk about the source and description, you can see everything is 0000 here because this is a basic setting, and all IPs is something I want it to be open to. So I won't be setting in any rules here. I just created a security group just for the sake of your understanding. But if you do go ahead and create a particular security group to govern your instances, I would suggest that you can set in laws here depending upon the complexity of the application that you're building. But as far as this session goes, we are just creating a demo session. So I would just go ahead and say create a group. A description is required. Let's say demo sec, right? And then I say create. Okay, where is the option of creating a group? There you go. Okay, so I just need to go ahead and, yep, use this thing. For now, I would be keeping it 00 because I do not want to specify any IP addresses here. And I just say, where did that option go? Create. A basic security group is created here. There you go. A demo security group is what I have, right? So yeah, what I can do is now I can just go ahead and create or launch an instance basically. To do that, let's say instances. Do I have any? I don't. So if I go to services and I say EC2, I can now launch an instance. Let's say launch an instance. Now what AWS does is it gives you quite a few options. You can have these virtual environments for your sake. You people might be wondering as in where am I going with the discussion of infrastructure as a service. Just bear with me for half a minute and you'd understand quite a few things. So let's create, say, some Windows instance here. I want free tier eligible. We have Windows 2016 base. I say select. See, these are the options I have. It's type T2 micro means a small instance, which is small in size. So this is for, again, the basic purposes. We are using one vCPU and memory is 1 GB. So you can actually go ahead and carry out all the processes, or instead you can just say review and launch, where it takes care of all the issues. Now, if you just go ahead and go to previous steps, you can actually set in the memory and all those things, as in how much space do you want to use. But I would skip that for now. Or let me just quickly give you a demo. There you go. So you can actually go ahead and specify quite a few things here, right? What are the ports you're using, security group name and all those things. You can enter all those things here, right? And you can then just say launch this so-called instance. Now it would ask you what keypad do you want to use, and I would say my first demo key which I just created, right? I acknowledge and I say launch. They say the instance is being launched. You can view its progress here, or you can just come here again, click on this icon, instances. It's running, right? As you move further, status checks. Now it is initializing right now. That means your instance is getting created. Let me just pause this video for a minute, and once the instance is launched, I would re-continue the session. So yes, after a very long wait, the instance or the status checks are complete and my instance is good to go. Now, till this time, I've put in so much efforts. I've gone ahead, I've actually launched an instance, I've put in the details that I wanted, I've created a security group, I have a passkey with me now. or the security key. Now I can actually connect to this instance and create a virtual machine. It says, see, I would be logging in as an administrator and I need a password. Password not available yet. Okay, so we've just launched an instance. So it says that for next 4 minutes, I cannot actually retrieve an auto-generated password. So again, I'll wait for 4 minutes and I would restart the session. So let's try it again. Connect, get password. It says choose a file, right? So if you remember, we actually had a PEM file. I would select that and I would open it here. I would say decrypt and it should give me a password. The password is fairly long. I'm just gonna copy it, Control C, and then I say I download this file and then I say connect here. It would ask me for the password and I would enter this password here. Do you want to connect despite all the certificate errors? I would say yes. And then what it would do is it would just go ahead and launch an instance for me, right? So yeah, we put in this much effort to just to go ahead and launch a particular instance. But then as you can see, I'm logging in here as an administrator and I have a nice clean slate of an instance. That means I've used EC2 where I've been given a basic infrastructure on which I have a virtual machine now on which I can do so many things, right? So yes, this is something very similar or something that you can relate to. Here I have an infrastructure where I have some space, I have some basic servers and all those things. And on top of it, I've actually launched my instance. And here I had to take care of everything, right? I mean, if you remember the steps that we went through, we've created an instance, we've actually set security groups. If required, we could do a lot more on it, as in setting in various user policies, group policies, some laws. Now, I had to take care of everything. Now, that is why I was only given the infrastructure, and everything else is something I had to do. I had to manage everything on my own, right? So this is what IaaS is exactly like. Let me just close this thing and close this as well. And let me just go back now. Now let me talk about something called as your platform as a service. And to talk more about that, I would quickly switch into the demo part again, or the presentation rather. Now this is an example that gives you a clear idea as in what happened. When you talk about AWS and if you are a developer, first thing you would do is you'd actually go ahead and set up an instance. That is, you'd be putting in or selecting a particular instance type, region, firewall, keys. Then you'd go ahead and deploy that and carry out all these operations. Then you would create an AMI, that is an image basically. Again, you'd auto scale and do all these things, right? And then on top of it, you'd be running applications. So in short, only infrastructure is given to you and you carry out all these processes. That is what IaaS is. Then you have something called as PaaS, that is your platform as a service. And a good example of it is your Elastic Beanstalk. Now, in Elastic Beanstalk, your provider, it takes care of all these things. If you talk about AWS claims that Elastic Beanstalk is one of their services which supports PaaS. It being an IaaS platform, people have normally related quite a few other services being as PaaS, but AWS claims or strongly claims that only or Elastic Beanstalk is one of the services that is actually PaaS. So let's go ahead and take a look at that as well. But before that, even if you do go ahead and create or use Elastic Beanstalk, it would give you access to all these things. As a developer, you could retain full control over all your resources, root access to EC2 instances, easily manage, configure, or create changes as far as your particular application is concerned. Use any database, create custom AMIs. I won't be getting into the details of this topic. Run other services side by side and easily move your application out of Elastic Beanstalk. So yeah, if I do go ahead and switch into the demo part, which is here, and if I look for Elastic Beanstalk, you can read here, run and manage web applications. That means you have a platform on top of which you would be running an application. These are the steps that you follow. You select a platform, upload an application or use a sample and just run it. Unlike creating instances and taking care of everything, everything is managed by a vendor. What you do is you just select a platform and you get started with it. So if I click on get started, I would have to put in some name, say a random name maybe here. And there you go. I select a platform here. What do I want exactly? So I can go ahead and select any platform, say Java, sample application, right? And then you say create an application. So as they say, this might take in a few minutes. So again, what would happen here is you'd be given a ready to use application which you can actually use. So this is what I was trying to convey here. Everything is taken care by your platform vendor. Basically, they would create an environment, they would give you everything. All you have to do is you have to just select the programming languages that is available in the options. Now, as I've told you, PaaS is restricted to vendor languages. So the vendor gave me a few options and I chose Java out of it. So my application is getting created in Java. So this templatized approach is nothing but your platform, where a complete platform is given to you where you can actually go ahead and build applications. Now, I won't be again going into the details and creating an application, but I just wanted you to see the difference. When you talk about IaaS, there you had to do everything from beginning. When you talk about platform as a service, here you just give in few details and the platform takes care of most of the things. And then you have your software as a service where you directly consume the softwares. So these were the differences. I also came across an article here by Miss Bindutuli, who again talks about AWS. Now this is the diagram which she used. As you can see, when you talk about IaaS, these are the services: EC2, VPC, S3, which is a storage service, Elastic Block Storage, Glacier, again, storage services. So they form the basic layer where all the basic stuff happens, your servers, your compute capacities, and all those things, they lie here, virtualization and all. Then you have something called as FSaaS and DBaaS. Now, I won't be getting into the details of these things. These are some other layers which AWS has created. And on top of that, you have your platform where you can run your applications. And the example is your Beanstalk. So yeah, this was about the different services that are there. I hope I made some sense to you people, and I hope you had something new to learn out of this session. If you do have any questions, guys, so do put those questions in the comment section below, and we would be more than happy to get back to you on all your queries. As far as this session goes, I would be resting it here and here. Thank you. Bye bye.
I hope you have enjoyed listening to this video. Please be kind enough to like it, and you can comment any of your doubts and queries, and we will reply them at the earliest. Do look out for more videos in our playlist and subscribe to Edureka channel to learn more. Happy learning!